They said no one survives that lake in winter, but she didn't hesitate. She didn't scream, didn't freeze. She jumped into the ice, into the pain, into the unknown. That's the kind of mother she was. And it was in that moment, soaked in frost and fire, that destiny noticed her. If you've ever doubted that one moment can change your life, stick around. Like, comment, and subscribe. Because what happens next isn't just heartwarming, it's life-changing. The wind cut like a blade across the frozen lake, sweeping powdery snow in spirals around the edges. Trees stood bare and brittle, their branches stiff with ice. On the far end of the lake, nestled against a lonely pine grove, stood a rundown cabin, barely more than 4 wooden walls and a sagging roof. Inside, Emma Clark wrapped her threadbare coat tighter around her frame and glanced at the clock. 3:48 p.m. The girls would be walking home from school any minute now. She hurried out the creaky door, boots crunching on the hardened snow as she made her way to the trail. Her twin daughters, Lily and Sophie, had begged to take the shortcut across the lake. Emma had warned them before. That path was dangerous in winter. She had said no. But kids never really listen, do they? That's when she saw the first mitten. Red, floating just at the lake's edge. Her pulse stopped. Then came the scream. It wasn't loud, more like a muffled wail swallowed by the wind. But it was unmistakably Lily's voice. Emma ran. The ice was thin in places, cracked like veins spreading across a pale skin. She could see them, her girls, clinging to each other near the center, legs submerged, the broken sheet of ice caving beneath them like a trapdoor to death. She didn't think. She didn't plan. She sprinted across the frozen surface, arms pumping, lungs burning. She heard the cracking underfoot, felt the sudden plunge as the ice gave way, cold like knives. But her grip on their coats didn't loosen. She pulled them both to the edge, inch by inch, teeth chattering, heart thundering, her own strength the only thing between her daughters in the dark below. By the time the sheriff and EMTs arrived, Emma was passed out, the twins clutched tightly in her arms, the three of them frozen together, soaked, trembling, but alive. News spread fast in the small town. They called her the Ice Angel. Strangers offered help, donations, food, but Emma refused most of it. She didn't want pity. She just wanted her girls safe, warm, and fed. She returned to her routine, working night shifts at the diner, taking odd jobs, patching up the cabin with tape and hope. Then exactly 3 days after the rescue, as the sun began to set behind the snowy ridge, she heard it, the low, synchronized hum of powerful engines. 10 sleek, black luxury SUVs rolled slowly down the forest road toward her cabin, dusting snow into the air like a scene out of a dream. Or maybe a miracle. Emma stepped onto her porch, holding her daughters close as they peeked out with wide eyes. The lead SUV stopped, its window lowered, and a man in a tailored coat, wearing gloves worth more than Emma's entire kitchen, stepped out. "I think we owe you more than just gratitude," he said, his eyes not on Emma, but on the red mitten she still kept clutched in her hand. Sometimes connection doesn't begin with words. It starts with a glance that lingers too long, a silence that says more than a sentence ever could, or a simple act of kindness that refuses to be ignored. What began as a rescue was about to become something far deeper. The man who stepped out of the SUV looked like he belonged in a boardroom, not in the middle of a frozen forest. His coat was jet black, his shoes gleamed despite the slush, and his presence exuded quiet authority. Yet his gaze was gentle, not the kind that scanned and judged, but one that searched and understood. "I'm Daniel Blackwell," he said, offering his hand, CEO of Blackwell Futures Foundation. Emma stared at the outstretched hand. She didn't take it. Not yet. Her instincts, shaped by hardship and disappointment, made her cautious. But her curiosity, that was harder to control. "You're here because of what happened at the lake?" she asked, shielding her daughter slightly behind her. "No," he replied. "I'm here because of what you did, and because someone you saved is very dear to me." That's when Emma noticed the backseat door of the second SUV opening. Out came a woman in her 50s, well-dressed but humble in her movements. Her hands trembled as she rushed forward. "Lily? Sophie?" Her voice cracked. "I need to see them." Emma was stunned, hesitant, but the girls peeked from behind their mother's coat. Sophie's eyes lit up. "Grandma?" Tears burst from the woman's eyes as she dropped to her knees in the snow, hugging the girls tightly. Emma blinked, frozen in place. She hadn't known the girl's paternal grandmother. Her late ex's family had cut all ties after his passing. And now, here she was, brought back by 10 black SUVs and a powerful stranger. Inside the cabin, the girls wrapped up in blankets. Emma served tea in mismatched mugs. Daniel sat across from her, his broad shoulders somehow fitting awkwardly in her small wooden chair. Your act of bravery, it didn't just save 2 children, it woke up a family that had abandoned its own blood. Emma stared down at her chipped mug. "I wasn't trying to be a hero, I just couldn't let them go." Daniel smiled slightly. "That's what real heroes always say." As the hours passed, conversation flowed more freely. Emma learned that Daniel ran a nonprofit focused on children's welfare. He had funded schools, hospitals, and community centers, but even with all his wealth and reach, he admitted something quietly over tea. "I've built cities, but I've never seen courage like yours. I'd like to help." Emma didn't know what to say. No one had ever offered her help without expecting something in return. "I don't need charity," she said flatly. "It's not charity," Daniel said, his tone softer now. "It's an invitation." She looked up. "To what?" "To a better life, if you're willing to trust me." For the first time, Emma noticed how Daniel's eyes stayed on hers. Not out of obligation, but because he wanted to understand her. And for the first time in years, her heart stirred with something dangerously close to possibility. Sometimes the people who offer light are hiding shadows of their own. And just when Emma thought she was beginning to trust again, a locked door opened. A door to a past she never knew was watching her. Because miracles don't come without secrets. And this one was darker than she imagined. The following morning, Emma woke up to the sound of laughter. Pure, unfiltered laughter she hadn't heard in what felt like years. Lily and Sophie were playing outside in the snow with their grandmother, and for once they weren't weighed down by cold, hunger, or the burden of pretending everything was okay. Inside, Emma stirred a pot of oatmeal on the tiny stove when she noticed Daniel outside, speaking on the phone, pacing near the SUVs. His voice was low but urgent. He kept glancing toward the cabin. Curiosity pricked at her. Something about the way he spoke, so different from the calm, composed man he had been the night before, unsettled her. Later that afternoon, he returned with supplies, food, winter clothes, even brand new boots for the girls. Emma accepted it with quiet gratitude, but something had shifted. As Daniel sat near the fire, sipping coffee from her cracked mug, Emma finally asked, "Why are you really here, Daniel?" He looked up slowly. "I told you, your rescue reached someone very important to me." "Yes," Emma said, "but people don't send convoys of luxury cars into a frozen forest for a simple thank you. You could have sent a letter, a donation, but you showed up yourself. Why?" He took a deep breath and leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "There's something I haven't told you. The truth is, this isn't the first time I've seen you." Emma's grip tightened around the coffee pot. "What do you mean?" Daniel met her gaze with quiet intensity. 6 years ago, I visited a state shelter. I was touring facilities for underprivileged children. You were there, pregnant, scared, alone. You didn't notice me, but I noticed you, and I never forgot your face." Emma's throat went dry. She remembered that time. She'd just lost her job, was days away from giving birth, and had slept 3 nights in a shelter. She thought no one had cared. She thought no one had seen her. "I tried to help you then," Daniel continued. "But by the time I tracked down your file, you were gone, off the grid. I hired someone to look, but you'd moved too much until the lake story brought your name back into my world." Emma stared at him, stunned. "You've been watching me all this time?" "Not watching," he said gently. "Searching." The room felt smaller now. filled with unsaid questions and heavy silence. "I wanted to tell you earlier," Daniel added, "but I didn't want to scare you. I didn't know if you'd see it as kindness or manipulation." Emma turned away, heart pounding. She didn't know what to believe, whether to feel grateful or betrayed. "You found me when I didn't even know I needed finding," she whispered. Behind her, Daniel stood. "And now that I have, I won't walk away, unless you ask me to." She said nothing, but deep inside something cracked open. A door to the past she thought she'd buried, and the terrifying hope that someone might have cared all along. Not every hand offered is meant to lift you. Sometimes it grips too tightly, presses too close, or reaches into parts of your life you fought to protect. Emma wanted to trust Daniel, but when the past knocks louder than the future, even love feels like a threat.
That night, the cabin felt colder than usual, not because of the weather, but because of everything unsaid between Emma and Daniel. She watched him from across the room, sitting near the fire, talking softly with the twins as they showed him their handmade paper crowns. He laughed, gently encouraging their creativity. He looked natural, like he belonged, and that scared her more than anything. When the girls finally went to bed, Emma stepped outside. The sky was a deep velvet, stars scattered like salt on a dark tablecloth. She barely heard Daniel join her until he spoke. "I crossed a line, didn't I?" he asked quietly. Emma didn't answer right away. Her breath came out in clouds. "You should have told me from the beginning. I know. You found me when I was at my worst, and instead of showing up then you waited until I became some kind of story." Daniel turned toward her, guilt softening his voice. "It wasn't like that. I didn't wait for headlines. I was trying to respect your privacy, your space. You showed up with 10 black SUVs and a truckload of food," she snapped. "That's not privacy. That's a parade." The silence between them thickened, raw with emotion. "I'm not used to people helping without wanting something," she said finally. "Everyone who's ever offered me something eventually wanted more of my time, my body, my peace." Daniel flinched slightly, but didn't interrupt. "I've worked hard to build something small, but mine. It might be cold, broken, and poor, but it's honest," she continued. "And now you've shown up with your money, your charm, and your quiet little secrets. I didn't come here to take your peace, Emma," he said gently. "I came to offer something you haven't had in a long time, choice." "Choice," she scoffed. "That went out the window the day I had to pick between food and heat. I'm not trying to control you. I just want to help you breathe again. Let the girls dream again. You deserve that." She turned to him slowly, anger flaring in her eyes. "And what do you get out of it, Daniel? What's the cost of this miracle you're offering?" His expression didn't shift. "I don't want anything." But that only made Emma more suspicious, because no one ever asked for nothing. And the way Daniel looked at her, like she was both fragile and fierce, made her heart ache in ways she didn't want to feel. "Maybe I'm not ready for miracles," she said softly. "Maybe I'm just surviving, and survival doesn't have room for trust." Daniel nodded, stepping back. "Then I'll wait, as long as it takes." Emma stayed outside long after he went in. The stars didn't blink, and the cold bit deeper. But inside her, something had cracked wide open. Not just fear, not just anger, but something even harder to admit. She didn't want to be alone anymore, and that was the real conflict. Sometimes the hardest battles are the quiet ones, the ones no one sees. They unfold in silence, behind closed doors, in the tight clutch of mother's heart that fears the light more than the dark. Because when you've survived on scraps and silence, even kindness feels like a trap. The days that followed felt like a blur of strange warmth and deeper questions. Daniel stayed, respectfully distant, yet always nearby. He didn't push. He didn't pry. And that, more than anything, made Emma uneasy. She wasn't used to boundaries being respected. One morning, she found a brand new generator humming softly outside the cabin. A sealed envelope lay beside it. No name, just a handwritten note. "In case you ever get tired of the cold. D." Her fingers trembled as she folded the note back up. No demands, no signature, just a gesture. And still it terrified her. Later that evening, as the girls colored by the fire, Emma sat on the edge of her bed, holding her phone in her hand. On the screen was a half-written message to Daniel, one she couldn't bring herself to send. "Thank you. I'm just not used to people showing up without taking something too." She deleted it. That night, she lay awake, haunted by memories she couldn't shake. Her ex's angry voice, the social worker's cold words, the night she gave birth alone in a clinic that barely had heat. Her life had been built on survival, scraping through, and now this man, with all his power and softness, had walked in like an answer to a prayer she'd stopped praying years ago. She didn't know how to accept that, didn't know if she should. She thought about sending Daniel away, telling him she didn't need charity, that she was strong, independent, capable. But then Lily coughed in her sleep, that rattling, dry winter cough, and Emma's eyes went straight to the new heater quietly warming the cabin. How long had it been since her daughters slept through the night without freezing? The next morning, she avoided Daniel entirely. She walked a long way to town, returning with groceries in reused bags, her pride weighing more than the food. She didn't answer when Daniel texted to check in. She didn't respond when he offered to fix the leaking roof, because saying yes felt like surrender, and surrender felt like weakness. That night, as she folded laundry by lantern light, her neighbor, old Mr. Holbrook, stopped by. He stood at the door, hat in hand, eyes wide. "You all right, Emma? Those big-shot SUVs ain't been round today. Thought you might have run 'em off." She smiled politely, just laying low. He hesitated, then said something she wasn't ready for. Sometimes folks offer kindness 'cause they see something in you stopped seeing in yourself. She nodded slowly, blinking back something she didn't want to feel. Maybe they just feel sorry for me." Mr. Holbrook shook his head. "Nah, that man, he don't look at you with pity. He looks at you like you're the one person in the world who might just be worth changing everything for." Emma closed the door behind him, the silence thicker than ever, and in that silence, doubt grew like frost across her heart. Hope doesn't always arrive like thunder. Sometimes it'll whisper in the dark, a coat left on your porch, or a child's voice asking if someone is coming back. When the world has made you numb, even the smallest warmth can feel like a wildfire. Emma had turned away, but life wasn't done offering her grace. It had been 3 days since Emma had last seen Daniel. No texts, no SUVs, no quiet knock on the door. And despite every part of her screaming that this was what she wanted, distance, space, control, her heart ached with every passing hour. The generator still ran. The food he brought was still stocked neatly on the shelf. And the girls still talked about him like he was part of their world, part of home. "Is Mr. Daniel coming today?" Sophie asked as she brushed her doll's hair. Emma shrugged. "Maybe." Lily looked up. "Did he go away because of us?" "No, baby," Emma said gently. "If he went, it's probably because of me." That night, as the girls slept, Emma sat on the porch with a blanket wrapped around her shoulders. Snow drifted slowly from the sky like falling feathers, and the night air smelled of pine and something unfamiliar. She thought of Mr. Holbrook's words, of Daniel's quiet eyes, of how he hadn't once tried to fix her, only offered, and how hard it had been to let someone do even that. Inside the cabin, something caught her eye. The red mitten, the one from the lake, was still hanging by the stove, a quiet reminder of that frozen day. Emma stood, walked to it, and held it in her hand. That's when she saw it. A note had been carefully slipped into the mitten, folded small, written in Daniel's handwriting. "If I scared you, I'm sorry. If I push too hard, I'll stop. But I'll always be nearby, not because I think you need me, but because I want to be the one who chooses to stay, even when you push away." D. Tears welled in her eyes. For the first time, she let herself cry, quietly, freely, because someone had seen her, truly seen her, and still stayed. The next morning, she bundled up the girls and walked into town. The diner manager offered her another overnight shift. She declined. "I think I'm done surviving," she said softly. "I want to start living." Back home, she helped the girls build a snowman. They laughed. She laughed. And just when she thought it couldn't get better, she heard it. The familiar hum of a high-end engine pulling onto the snowy drive. The girl screamed with joy. "Mr. Daniel." Emma turned slowly, heart pounding, and there he was, stepping out of a single SUV this time. No convoy, no show, just him, hands in his coat pockets, that quiet, hopeful smile playing at his lips. "I was trying to give you space," he said. Emma took a deep breath, her voice trembling. "I don't need space. I need someone who doesn't run when things get heavy." Daniel stepped closer. "Then I'm staying." And in that moment, under the soft snowfall and the warmth of something unnamed, hope didn't just flicker. It burned. Their promises as spoken out loud, and others whispered through actions, glances, and choices. But the ones that matter most? They're sealed in silence, in presence, in staying when you could have left. For Emma, this was more than a man's word. It was a vow written into the cracks of her broken life. Daniel didn't bring gifts this time. No new coats. No shiny boxes. No truckloads of generosity. He brought himself, and for once, that was enough. Emma invited him inside, her voice softer, more steady than it had been in days. The fire crackled in the hearth, and the girls giggled in the corner, drawing pictures of a snowman family with stick arms and big smiles. One of them had a beard and wore a coat that looked suspiciously like Daniel's. She handed him a cup of tea, and for a while they didn't speak, just sat, breathing the same air, warmed by the same flame. Finally, Emma broke the silence. "You said you didn't want anything from me." "I meant it," Daniel replied. She nodded, then whispered, "But I think I might want something from you." He looked up, surprised, not by her words, but by the raw honesty in her voice. "I want to stop feeling like I'm always bracing for the next bad thing," she continued. "I want to sleep at night, without worrying the roof will cave in. I want my girls to grow up knowing they're safe. And I want to believe I don't have to carry all of that alone." Daniel leaned forward, his tone firm but gentle. "You shouldn't have had to in the first place." Emma's eyes shimmered, but she didn't look away. "I don't know how to let someone stay. I've never had that." Daniel took her hand, slowly, like someone approaching a frightened bird, and held it between both of his. Warm. "Sure. Then let me show you," he said, not by saying the right things, but by being here. Tomorrow, the next day, the hard days too. You don't have to believe me yet. Just watch me. Let time prove what I can't say in one night. The tears came silently. Not heavy, not loud, but slow and sure. The kind that didn't sting. The kind that healed. From the corner, Lily piped up, "Is Mr. Daniel going to stay forever?" Emma chuckled through her tears, looking at Daniel with raised eyebrows. "Well," he smiled, eyes never leaving hers. "Only if your mom says yes." The twins squealed, running over to hug his legs like tiny vines wrapping around the roots of something strong. Emma wiped her cheeks and nodded, her voice just above a whisper. "Then I guess yes." Daniel leaned forward slightly, pressing his forehead gently against hers, his voice barely audible. "Then this is my promise. I'll never make you smaller. I'll never take away your strength. I'm just here to carry some of the weight when it gets too heavy." And in that quiet corner of a once broken cabin, with no rings, no ceremonies, no witnesses but two giggling girls and a snowman outside, a promise was made, and it was the most sacred one of all. Sometimes joy doesn't come with warning. It sneaks in between breaths, in the laughter of children, or the way someone looks at you like you're already home. Emma wasn't expecting it, not after everything. But when pain loosens its grip, even the smallest smile can feel like a sunrise after years of storm. Winter had begun to thaw, just slightly, enough that the snow crunched differently under boots, and sunlight stayed a little longer in the afternoons. But something warmer than weather was changing around the cabin, and it lived in the way Emma started to hum while making tea, the way the girls slept deeper at night, and the way Daniel never walked into their home. He arrived like he belonged. They were no longer just surviving. One Saturday morning, Daniel showed up early, cheeks pink from the cold, holding a folded paper behind his back and wearing a grin that made Emma raise an eyebrow. "Where are you hiding?" she asked, pouring coffee into mismatched mugs. He handed her the paper. Permission slip. For what? He leaned on the counter. For a surprise. She opened it and scanned quickly. An overnight trip to a mountain lodge? Spa. Hot meals. Professional childcare staff. Daniel, I can't just... It's not charity, he cut in gently. It's rest. Real rest. You go. I stay here with the girls. You trust me now, right? Emma blinked at him. Are you seriously offering me 48 hours of silence, sleep and no macaroni stains? He grinned wider. With heated floors. That night, as she packed a small bag, feeling guilt and excitement wrestle in her chest, Lily came up to her, hugging her tight. Don't worry, Mommy. Mr. Daniel's gonna braid our hair and make pancakes. He promised. Emma crouched down. You sure you'll be okay with him? Sophie nodded eagerly. He even said we can watch movies and build a snow fort if it's not too icy. Daniel stood in the doorway behind them, holding a stack of Disney DVDs and pink mittens like a man preparing for battle. As Emma stood at the top of the mountain lodge's steps the next morning, wrapped in a thick robe, sipping hot cocoa with a view of endless snow-dusted pines, she realized something wild. She felt light, like she could breathe without apologizing, like she wasn't a burden anymore. Meanwhile, back at the cabin, Daniel sat in the middle of a living room covered in crayons, popcorn, and blankets. Lily painted his nails. Sophie braided 3 uneven plaits into his hair. They crowned him with a tiara made of pipe cleaners and called him King Pancake. He didn't mind. When Emma returned 2 days later, face flushed, skin glowing, laughter returned to her like an old friend, the girls rushed her at the door. Mommy, he made heart pancakes. And read 6 books in funny voices. Emma looked at Daniel. He looked like he hadn't slept. She laughed. You okay? He smiled, his eyes tired but happy. Best weekend of my life. She paused, then reached up and smoothed one of the pink-painted strands of hair, still clinging to his forehead. You're insane. He grinned. For you? Maybe. And just like that, without grand gestures or expensive words, joy returned. The kind that builds slowly, quietly. The kind they never saw coming. Love isn't proven in perfect moments. It's tested in broken ones, in late bills, sleepless nights, stubborn silence, and fears that come back even when things are good. As winter turned to spring, Emma and Daniel discovered that happily ever after isn't given. It's earned day by day. Spring came slowly to the forest. The snow melted in uneven patches, leaving behind muddy trails and the promise of green. Birds returned to the trees. The lake, once deadly, shimmered in the afternoon light. Calm now, as if the ice had never cracked. And in their little cabin, things had begun to feel real. Not magical, not perfect, just real. Emma got a part-time job helping at the school library. The girls were thriving, healthier, louder, hungrier in the best way. And Daniel? He traded his sleek SUV for a beat-up pickup truck with a dented side and a heater that groaned like an old man. He didn't mind. I want to match the neighborhood, he joked. They made it work. But slowly, the cracks began to show, not between Emma and Daniel, but inside Emma herself. The first fight was small. He offered to pay off her past debts, medical bills, old utility accounts, even forgotten eviction fee. It was a generous gesture, a smart one. But Emma exploded. You can't just erase everything I've lived through with a pen stroke. I'm not trying to erase it, Daniel said, calm but confused. I'm trying to lighten it. Isn't that what love is? Emma turned away. You say love like it's easy. The silence afterward lingered longer than either of them liked. Then came the afternoon she missed Lily's school play because of a flat tire. Daniel had offered to pick the girls up that day, but Emma had insisted, determined to do it herself. By the time she arrived, the chairs were empty, the stage lights off, and her daughter's glitter-covered crown lay forgotten near the back row. She cried all the way home. That night, Daniel held her, arms tight around her as she whispered things she hadn't dared admit before. I don't know how to trust that I won't fail again. He didn't offer promises. He didn't try to fix it. He just stayed. And in staying, He passed the test she didn't know she was giving. Because love wasn't a grand rescue. It was this: showing up for the grocery runs, helping with homework, arguing about whether cereal counts as dinner, staying through the awkward silences, and letting her fall apart without judging her for it. One evening, after the girls had fallen asleep, Emma stepped out onto the porch, wrapped in her old flannel blanket. Daniel followed, 2 mugs of hot tea in hand. She looked up at him and said, "I keep expecting you to leave." He handed her a mug and replied, "And I keep showing up." She smiled faintly. "Why?" "Because I didn't fall in love with the easy parts of your life. I fell in love with you. It wasn't a fairy tale. It wasn't dramatic, but it was strong, and it was lasting. A fresh start doesn't mean forgetting the past. It means growing strong enough to carry it differently." For Emma, new beginnings didn't come wrapped in perfection. They came in small choices, soft mornings, and the slow rebuilding of a life she never thought she deserved. This wasn't a rescue story anymore. It was her story. 6 months later, the cabin looked nothing like it used to. The sagging roof had been replaced with sturdy wood beams and skylights that let the sun in. The walls were freshly painted with the girl's handprint stamped proudly near the doorway. The fire still roared in the evenings, but now it crackled inside a stone fireplace, built by Daniel and Mr. Holbrook over 2 rainy weekends. Emma had kept the old red mitten. It now hung in a small glass frame above the mantel, not as a symbol of fear, but a fight, a reminder of where it all began. The girls had just finished their first year at their new school, excelling in reading, art, and talking their way out of bedtime. They ran barefoot through the yard that summer, chasing fireflies and dreams in equal measure. And Emma? She was no longer surviving. She had started working part-time at a small publishing press Daniel helped her connect with, editing children's books, and sometimes writing her own stories late at night when the house was quiet. Words, once her escape, had become her foundation. The fear hadn't vanished completely. It still whispered sometimes. But now she knew how to answer it. One warm June morning, as Emma sat on the porch sipping coffee, Daniel joined her with a newspaper tucked under his arm and 2 bowls of cereal for the girls, already halfway eaten. "They raided the fridge at 6 a.m., he said with a grin, sitting beside her. She smirked. Sounds about right. They watched the sun rise over the tree-line, soft and golden. Emma broke the silence. "You know, if you'd asked me a year ago what my future looked like, I would have told you it didn't exist." Daniel turned to her, listening. "But now," she continued, eyes glassy with quiet emotion, "I see everything. A garden, a dog, even maybe a wedding dress that doesn't cost more than rent." Daniel smiled, his voice low. "White or cream?" She laughed. "Definitely cream. White's too loud." He reached into his pocket, not with a ring, not yet, but with a small, folded piece of paper. He handed it to her. It was a drawing, by the girls, 4 stick figures. 1 tall man with a briefcase, 1 woman with wild curly hair, and 2 little girls in dresses, all holding hands. Above them, written in shaky block letters, "Our family." Emma's throat tightened. "I didn't tell them to draw it," Daniel said. "They just see it. Maybe it's time you do too." She folded the paper and tucked it close to her heart. "Then let's call this what it is," she whispered. "A beginning?" "No," she said, turning to him with a smile. "A home." And this time, when she looked out at the trees, the sky, and the man beside her, she wasn't waiting for the world to fall apart again. She was ready to build. Love is easy when life is soft, but its true shape is revealed in crisis, when the past resurfaces with claws and consequences. Emma and Daniel face a choice that could cost everything they built, because real love doesn't just promise to stay. It's willing to lose, to suffer, to sacrifice for the ones who matter most. It began with a phone call. Emma answered it on a quiet Tuesday afternoon while the girls were painting pine cones in the yard. She was folding laundry, laughing at something Sophie had said earlier, and then everything froze. The voice on the line was sharp, cold, legal. "This is Attorney Charles Belling. I represent Mr. Mitchell Graves, the maternal grandfather of Lily and Sophie Clark. He is filing for emergency custody." Emma nearly dropped the phone. She hadn't heard that name in years. Her late husband's estranged father, a man who had never visited, never called, never cared, until now. He believes the children will be better placed with blood family, the lawyer continued. Given your financial history and the recent publicity surrounding your situation, we'll be moving quickly. Emma's heart collapsed inward. By nightfall, Daniel had arrived, calm but intense. She handed him the letter. His expression darkened as he read the neatly typed threat. Why now? Emma whispered. Why when we finally built something? Because people with power hate when they lose control, he said. He saw your name in a news clip after the lake rescue. He saw me, and now he wants to disrupt it, to take back what he ignored. Emma's voice broke. What if we lose them? Daniel took her hand. We won't. But deep down, she saw the flicker in his eyes. Even he wasn't sure. The legal battle began fast. Courtrooms, evaluations, lawyers who raised questions Emma had buried long ago. Have you ever been homeless? Yes. Have you ever relied on outside help for basic needs? Yes. Is this man, Daniel Blackwell, your husband? No. They twisted everything. Painted her as unstable, dependent, unfit. Even the cabin, the warmth, the structure, they framed it as a man saving a fragile woman. Emma felt it all slipping. One afternoon, after court, she sat alone in the empty school library where she worked. Her reflection stared back on the glass door, not broken, but tired. So tired. Daniel came in quietly. The next hearing is final. I know. He crouched beside her, pulled something from his coat pocket. A manila envelope. What's this? My offer. My sacrifice. She opened it. Legal papers. Daniel had transferred all his foundation's assets, his home, his name, into a trust. For the girls. For Emma. All of it. Legally separated from him. If they say I'm a threat to custody, my wealth, my public name, then I'll step back, he said. I'll remove myself. I'll vanish if I have to. Emma's face went white. You give everything up to even us? Daniel's voice cracked. If it means you keep your daughters? Without question. She stared at him, chest heaving. That's not fair. No, he said. It's love. And in that moment, as the world tried to take everything from her, Daniel offered the one thing no one else ever had, his absence, as proof of his devotion. Some endings aren't loud. They arrive like peace, like breath after drowning, after storms, after loss, after the world has asked too much. Sometimes you don't win with strength, but with staying. Emma had lost everything once. But this time, when the final judgment came, she discovered what she could never lose again. The courtroom was quiet, sterile. No cries, no drama. Just a judge with gray eyes and a gavel. Flipping through the final file, Emma sat upright, her hands shaking beneath the table. Daniel wasn't beside her. He had honored his word, submitted the legal transfer, disappeared from the paperwork, his presence erased to protect the very thing he loved. She hadn't seen him in a week. Lily and Sophie sat quietly behind her, too young to understand the war that was being fought on their behalf. The judge cleared her throat. After reviewing the home inspection reports, financial statements, character references, and prior involvement, I've reached my decision. Emma held her breath. I do not find sufficient grounds to alter the children's custody. They will remain in the care of their biological mother, Ms. Emma Clark. The world stood still. Then Lily squealed. Sophie cried. Emma gasped, half laugh, half sob. And just like that, it was over. Later that night, the cabin glowed with soft music, firelight, and the smell of fresh-baked cinnamon rolls. Friends stopped by with hugs and flowers. Mr. Holbrook raised a glass. The girls danced in socks across the wooden floor. But Emma kept looking toward the door. He wasn't there. She stepped outside quietly, away from the warmth, into the cool evening air. The stars were scattered overhead. The trees whispered. Then headlights. A single vehicle, old, dented, familiar. Daniel stepped out. She ran before she could stop herself. She hit his chest like a wave, fists against his coat, tears pouring. You weren't there. I didn't even know if... I couldn't watch, he whispered. Not if it meant I had to walk away. You didn't have to, she said, sobbing. The judge ruled in our favor. He froze. You won. She nodded. He wrapped her in his arms, burying his face in her shoulder. They stood in silence, surrounded by stars. When they went inside, the girls ran straight to him, yelling, Daddy Daniel, like it had never been in question. Emma didn't correct them. And Daniel? He just knelt, arms wide, catching them both. Months passed. The trust Daniel had created became a scholarship fund. Not just for Emma's girls, but for dozens of children in similar situations. The cabin expanded. A garden grew. Books lined the shelves Emma once thought would never be filled. One summer afternoon, the four of them sat under a tree, a picnic basket between them, the girls making daisy crowns. Emma leaned her head on Daniel's shoulder. You ever think about the lake? She asked. All the time, he said. I thought I was saving someone that day, she whispered. You did, he said. But you were the miracle, Emma. And there, in the quiet hum of peace, the giggles of their daughters and the soft rustle of trees that had witnessed it all, the chaos of the past faded into music. Every broken note, every scar, every silent battle had become part of the final harmony.